just was like, oh, bang on. But so I know from firsthand, Jenna's work is brilliant because I hired you to come and work with me, right? Over maybe a nearly 3 month period. I think I lose track of time a lot of the time. And I was struggling, believe it or not, with confidence, right? It was like confidence was actually, yeah, I think a lot of people might be surprised with that. So I was struggling with confidence and self-assurance, reassurance for myself that I'm good enough. And we did a lot of work, and I listened to a lot of your material as well. And my subconscious completely flipped 180, right? So before we get into it, what made you get into this line of work?
Oh, good question. I think in the end, like looking back, it just worked out perfectly. And everything happens for a reason, I believe. And I knew that I've always wanted to help people in whatever job I do. I knew that I wasn't happy in teaching anymore. And so I got in touch with an old colleague who I know was qualified in coaching, and asked for some advice about how to get into that field. And she'd moved on and trained as a solution focused hypnotherapist, and lo and behold was actually teaching a course as well. So I signed up there and then had to wait nearly a year to join the course because I just missed the start of that cohort. And just have never looked back. It's amazing. But going on from what you said about why we work together, you're so right. People, how they portray themselves to the outside world can and often is so different to what's going on the inside. And you can look like the most confident individual but really, really be struggling on the inside, and that is where the change happens.
Yeah, I agree. Like, and I think it's a common problem with men, like huge problem with men. You know, I've worked with men for many years. I've been a man for 43. So I really understand, you know, it's very easy to wear a mask. I talk about a lot of that in my first book, you know, wearing a mask. People don't really know what's going on inside of your mind, your brain, your emotions, feeling vulnerable, you know. And actually, since we've worked together, I feel like a different guy. Like, you know, I definitely got a spring in my step. Jem's noticed it. You know, it's still the odd bad days here and there, but I've, like, a lot of people have recognised that I've really kind of like got back to my old self. You know, that self-confidence. And I think when I was in the military, I never struggled with any of that. You know, I genuinely didn't. And I think that was very much because I was very content, and I knew what I wanted. I had purpose, character. And I think I'm sure it was you that said to me, it's kind of like your brain is just tied in a knot right now and can't flow naturally how it's meant to. And I often view or visualize men who are struggling, and just their brain has just got a couple of knots in it, and we just have to untangle those knots to really get the flow going again. Who are we? What do we want? Where's our future going? What's our passions and desires, right? Would you agree that's a good analogy?
Yeah, it comes back to what I said right at the beginning, is that our brains are designed for survival, and most of the time we don't know how our brain works. So, you know, this stuff should be taught in schools, because if we grew up knowing how our brain works and the fact that we are primed for negativity, because if you think a caveman has to be on red alert all of the time, you know, the instinct is survival, and that's it. But life is very different now, but our brains are the same. So we have to know how to live in the modern day world with a brain that can be very negative. And as soon as you start down that slippery slope of negativity, I talk about the primitive brain, which is the part of your brain that you're operating from if you are in fight or flight mode. And it is very negative. It thinks worst case scenario. And the thing is, when you are worrying, and naturally you'll be thinking worst case scenario because your brain is built for survival. When you're worrying, your brain can't tell the difference whether it's actually just a worry or it's actually happening. And so what happens, every thought has a chemical reaction in your body. Hence you can feel feelings, you can feel symptoms based on feelings. So your brain, when you are worrying and overthinking, is kicking out adrenaline, because you're in fight or flight mode, and it needs to be ready for whatever's coming next. And so we can live in this chronic state of stress, and it's just exhausting, and you get stuck in a vicious cycle. And it can lead to all sorts of things, you know, physical health problems, poor sleep, just lack of fulfillment,
Yeah.
all sorts.
So it's kind of like having an apocalyptic type of mind, isn't it? I guess worst case scenario all of the time.
Yeah.
And like I can relate to that. Like you always think the worst case scenario is beating yourself up. Then like for me, I used to turn to the bottle to help ease that stress and that pain. If you were to talk about the mechanics of how that works, I remember you talking to me when we met for coffee, and you were talking to me about the stress bucket and how that fills up subconsciously. Is that something you can explain to the guys to maybe? I think it's important for guys to hear that, but then understand the mechanics of what's happening, so that when they're having a bad day or there's lots of negativity going on around, they can visualize what's going on in their head.
Yeah, definitely. So you're so right. When you understand what's going on with it, you can do something about it and change. And that's the thing, when I worked with you and other people, it's a life change. Okay, so I'd never expect you to come back to me and say, Jenna, can we have some more sessions? Because you now know how your mind works. And when you have those blips and you feel like you're a bit vulnerable to dipping into your primitive mind, you know what I've taught you and you know how to get out of it. Oh yeah, stress bucket. I forgot what you asked me. So we all have a stress bucket, a metaphorical stress bucket in the mind. And every negative thought we have, whether it's a conscious one or a subconscious one, because our brain is always scanning our surroundings all the time. So every negative thought goes into our stress bucket. And so obviously the more you worry and the more you think about the past or the future, the more is going to go in your stress bucket. And that stress bucket fills up. And if there's stuff from the past that is weighing you down, you can almost think of it like at the bottom of your stress bucket is constantly full. So you've got less,
like a base layer at the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got less room to fill it up. And when it's full, that's when you feel overwhelmed by the slightest thing.
So short temper. So we lose our temper really quick in a car or something like that.
Exactly.
That base layer up, right?
Yeah. So in our primitive mind, when we're operating in fight or flight mode, as I said before, it's very negative. But your primitive brain can only respond out of anger, anxiety, or depression, and like moods associated with that, like so frustration, irritability. You know, it's a very, very negative place. And so it fills up. But our brain is amazing. I don't like to just talk negatively, because once we understand how our brain works, we know how to use it to help us live a better life. And the opposite of your primitive brain is the intellectual mind. And that's when you don't worry about the past or the future. You have things in perspective. You're in control. You don't resort to coping mechanisms, which I want to come back to as well. But you're just able to think clearly. You're confident. You enjoy life. You feel fulfilled. All those amazing things. That's when you're in that state of mind, you're in your intellectual mind, and you're more resilient. Less goes in your stress bucket.
So if I was to do, we're going to talk before, I want us to move on to the more positive side of things and how we get out of this and how we do all of that. So I don't want to dwell on, I think it's important to like face this and understand this and talk about this. And then we're ready to initiate a reaction or resolve. If you were to talk about signs and symptoms of somebody that was struggling in that mindset, what would some of the characteristics look like? You know, if so, and the reason I asked that question is because I want guys to be able to self-diagnose and self-recognize, right? I think that's really important for when we do that. Like whenever I teach my kids about mental health, I want them, and they say, oh my God, I'm really struggling. I say, look at the positive of this. You recognize the triggers and what's happening here. You recognize what's happening. So for the lads that are listening, and if there's females listening, what would you say those characteristic signs and symptoms would look like?
So worrying, definitely, whether that's worrying about what other people think of you, or worrying about things you've done in the past, or worrying about the future. Just any kind of worry shows that you're not in your intellectual mind, you're in your primitive brain. Other signs of being in your primitive brain, which is the same as fight or flight mode, are low confidence, easily irritated, no patience, lack of empathy as well at times, resorting to coping mechanisms like stress eating, turning to alcohol. But anything can be a coping mechanism. Social media, being addicted to your phone is a coping mechanism. Other things, brain fog. Procrastination is a huge one, because procrastination is your brain trying to keep you safe. So this is the thing, when you are stuck in this mode and it feels very negative for you, your brain doesn't care about your happiness. Your brain wants you to stay alive. And so it will keep you in this current state of feeling awful, stressed, irritated, whatever it is, it's your personal situation. It wants you to keep in that mode, because that is the known state. Anything else, whether, it's obviously going to be an improvement, getting into your intellectual mind is an improvement. It doesn't want you to get there because it's the unknown.
Makes sense.
And so it will keep you resorting to coping mechanisms and procrastinating to the nth degree, or whatever those horrible situations are for yourself.
It's like having a negative mate, really, isn't it? So it's like often when I talk to a lot of people that are trying to change their lives, there's always that one person who's trying to bring you back, trying to hold you down, trying to stop you. And we often talk about the elite operator, right? So the elite operator is an alter ego that we talk about within the men, and that is the switching on of the mind, and becoming much more conscious about the reflection in the mirror and what you're saying, what you're doing, and all of that. And what we've just spoken about, I guess, in the introduction to that mindset, is almost having a negative version of that elite operator, right? Somebody who just doesn't like maybe it's just the way that I visualize it, but I always visualize that I have an elite operator and a negative elite operator, and the negative chat is always trying to have a fight. It's like this internal fight, right? So we've spoken about the negative sides of things. Before we go on to the positive, you wanted to speak about coping mechanisms. What is it about that you wanted to bring up and kind of talk about the guys, that to make them a little bit more aware about them?
So your coping mechanism happens because you're stuck in fight or flight mode in your primitive brain, and your brain needs you to stay alive from 1 minute to the next. So it's not thinking about tomorrow, it's not thinking about your long-term goals or your long-term happiness. It really doesn't care about that. It's just about surviving from 1 minute to the next. So if that is downing a whole bottle of wine when you only wanted one glass, like you have no you have no self-control. Even if you're on a diet or whatever, if you know what your goals are, or if you set up your day the next day, you plan for the next day. If you're an entrepreneur, for example, and you know what you want to achieve the next day, you write your to-do list, you go to bed like, yes, I'm pumped, I'm going to do this tomorrow. If you're in your primitive brain, it won't happen, because your primitive brain will get you to resort to a coping mechanism such as procrastination, because it doesn't know any different. So it wants you to do what you've always done before, because that made you stay alive. So your primitive brain cannot think of something different, because that signifies risk. Does that make sense?
So good examples here are when lads go, old habits die hard. Oh my God, it's all those old habits. When we say we're going to start Monday, like we're on it on Monday, and then suddenly primitive mind comes back in. New Year's, January, right? We last fucking 3 weeks, and then what? It's finished, right? And that old mindset is overtaking us. Right. So we got to this point. So how do we move forwards with this? What's the answer? So if we were going to break it down into frames for these guys to understand, what's the first things that we have to start thinking about doing to counter this?
Number one is self-awareness and education, because if you don't know this stuff, then you can't move. Watching this is brilliant because you're learning so much. Number two is knowing what to do to get out of your primitive mind and up into your intellectual mind, so that less goes in your stress bucket, and so that you can feel more resilient and able to be in control of your thoughts and your feelings, and therefore your actions. And how you do that is basically, so with my clients, I talk about the 3 Ps. So these 3 Ps, whatever goes in these categories, generate or produce feel-good hormones in your brain that help you feel more resilient, gets you up into your intellectual mind and therefore thinking more positively. So less goes in your stress bucket and you're able to feel more patient, tolerant, etc. So these 3 P's then, we talk about positive thinking. Okay, so generally switching your mindset so you're not always thinking negatively, and I'll come back to that because that is really, really hard, because we are hardwired to be negative because we're survival, survival instincts there. The next one is positive actions. Okay, so it's about valuing yourself and giving yourself the level of self-respect to actually get on and do things that you enjoy. Do more of what lights you up, because when you do, you get those feel-good hormones that you need that will help you maintain your stress levels. It's not all about work. It's not about other people. It's about filling your own cup first so that you have the resources and the maintained stress levels to be there for the ones you love and to keep your priorities in check.
That's really hard for men to do. Like, one of the big things we always talk about is the priority triangle. Being at the top of the priority triangle. When you're up here, everyone gets the best version of you, right?
Exactly.
But quite often for men, they're under that triangle, carrying the weight of the world, right? And it's hard. And I know naturally men will have a negative reaction to that, because they're like, oh, it's easy for you, or you don't know what I'm going through, or some other bullshit excuse that people, like blokes, come up with. And it's just response. Yeah, 100%. And you're like, listen, and I always think of ego as a bubble of emotions and observing your emotions, and it's like being able to control that ego, right? It's the HQ of emotions for men, and like, I didn't have to work hard to drop my guard or be vulnerable to this. Like, I've over the years I've had to like almost be submissive to the ego and go like, just drop the ego. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Be aware of this. And I think that's what's really important to understand, guys, in terms of letting go and understanding you're not being selfish by being a priority. We're not talking about getting a bachelor pad and a mistress and watching Babe Station all night. We're talking about like getting up in the morning, right? Having an hour to your time, yourself. Like, I've been like, my morning routine recently has been incredible. I've been really like reflective, calm, time to myself, and then coming back and getting school run ready. And that's what Jen is talking about here, those magic periods of time. I think it's important.
Third one is positive interactions, because we're social beings as humans. We need interaction. And so even if you don't feel like it, if you suffer with social anxiety or whatever, just keep being sociable. Even with pets, it counts. So interact with your dog or your cat. You get the same feel-good hormones that help you. But also know that your thoughts and your emotions and your feelings come from the subconscious mind. So you can't help how you feel. You can't help what thoughts come into your head. But you can absolutely change and be in control of the second thought. Okay. So what I mean by this, one of our 3 P's is the positive thought, and that helps you stay on top and stay in your intellectual mind. So if you notice that you have a negative thought, whether it's a worry or an irritation or whatever, you have a choice then. You can either continue to feel pissed off or anxious or whatever, the negative side, or you can choose to think about something more positive, because your mind can only think one thing at a time. And if you choose a positive thought, that's going to lift your energy levels, your mood, because you'll be releasing feel-good hormones. So I think I said it earlier that your brain can't tell the difference between real and imagination, and that's why anxiety is so hard and horrible.
And virtual reality, right? You don't know, what is this real? Is this not real?
But it works on the positive side as well. So if you've had that negative thought, you can't help it, but you can help what happens next. And what happens next, if you choose, is that you can think a positive thought. And we're not talking about toxic positivity here. We could be like, let's say you're annoyed because you're stuck in traffic. You don't have to be annoyed. You can start to think about the things that you're looking forward to. And imagine like looking forward to going out on a date night or whatever. Because then your brain's experiencing that inside your head and releasing those feel-good hormones. Or you can think back to a time that gave you joy, or like a funny moment or something. A past memory will have the same effect. or you can start to think what you're grateful for, and you occupy your mind to list things you're grateful for.
Yeah.
And therefore you're suddenly lifting yourself
Yeah.
away from that negative thought, thinking a positive thought, and generating some feel good hormones.
Why do men not do that?
Because they don't know how the mind works. People don't know how their mind works. Like I said, you know, I wish people knew this stuff. It would make such a difference.
Why do you think men fall into a victim mentality?
Primitive brain response,
Okay.
protection, self-protection.
Okay.
If they don't have to face up to the reality, then they don't have to change. And the primitive brain doesn't want you to change, even if you're really unhappy.
Right. And that's why they had the pity party and get out of it.
And that's why they maybe sign up for one of your courses or something and then drop off.
Yeah.
You know, that's why, they just don't see things through, whether that's with you or just any personal thing, you know.
And so do you believe that you have to be like, so if they were going to do my course or another course, or they were going to invest in a program or a course of something, whatever it's to do with work or health or wellness, do you think that person has to be almost ready to change
Yes.
to do it? And do you think that somebody who is lying to themselves saying that they're ready to change is more likely to drop off and fall into that primitive mind?
It depends on the person.
Okay.
I think if you know what we're talking about now and you've watched this and you understand that your brain will try to stop you getting the help that you so desperately need, then you're less likely to drop out. But if, absolutely, I think you need to be ready for change. And so, you know, I over the sort of past year or since I've been training, people have said to me like, oh, can you hypnotize everyone? And, you know, people have heard of hypnotherapy because they've heard of things like Darren Brown and stuff. And it's so different.
The fucking medallion going left and right and like your eyes.
But the thing is all forms of hypnosis is self-hypnosis.
Oh, yeah.
So you can only have hypnotherapy and it will only work if you want it to work. So obviously I'm not going to work with somebody who doesn't want to work with me. And therefore, in order to work with me or in order to work with you or any personal development outlet, you need to be ready for change.
100%. Everything that we've talked about so far, I think alcohol is a huge problem for men, right? A coping mechanism, an addiction, a habit, whatever, all the same kind of come under the same category. Do you think this type of intellectual thinking is something that we need to address in terms of dealing with that type of addiction or that type of habit or, you know, that type of routine?
So alcohol, number one, alcohol is bad for you because obviously for everybody knows why alcohol is bad for you, but it affects your sleep in a way that makes life worse, makes life harder for you. So sleep is so important because what happens in your sleep is your brain processes your stress bucket. So all the things we talked about earlier that go in your stress bucket throughout the day, when you're asleep at night, during your REM sleep, when you're dreaming, your brain will process the experiences you've had, positive and negative, but the negative ones, they'll take the sting out of it and it moves it to your intellectual mind so that your experiences and your memories you've got control over. And you know the saying, time is a healer. If you go through a really difficult time in your life, it's not time, it's sleep. Okay, so yes, you need sleep to process what's in your stress bucket, and the bigger that thing is that you need to process, the more sleep you need. So over time, and alcohol affects the quality of your REM sleep.
Okay, so when we hear the phrase like sleep on it before making a decision, very much what you have just talked about, is the science behind that saying, right?
So the subconscious mind is the part of your brain that is responsible for all of your amazing mental abilities, your ideas, your problem solving, your genius light bulb moments. They're coming from your subconscious mind. So if in your job you need to be creative, then this is really, really important that you do things that you enjoy, because when you are out surfing or running or doing stuff where you're enjoying yourself and you're not sort of in work mode, your subconscious mind is active and is going to be working over things that you want to work over, and you're going to get those ideas so much more than if you're just work.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? It's like, it's really interesting. I know that you've just touched on sleep. What would you say to guys that were struggling with sleep? Like, you know, men sleeping, for me, I kind of in my mind know that there's a lot, men overthink a lot. So obviously that overthinking is that stress bucket filling up, right? So it's the apocalypse thinking. But, you know, I meet a lot of men who do the 5-day challenge who always complain that, you know, I'm just not sleeping well. And, you know, there's the obvious distractions like your phone, being on phone, social media, TV till late, alcohol, you know, those type of things. If somebody wanted to get into a better sleeping pattern, what would you say maybe the top 2 or 3 things might be that you would advice that you would give those people?
9 times out of 10, if there's sleep problems, once you've addressed things like avoiding blue light on your screen, and cutting down alcohol, because alcohol will make you drift off to sleep, but then it will wake you up in the night, so it will affect your quality of sleep. Once you've addressed all of the things that you can just Google to work out to sort out your sleep hygiene, then it's about stress levels. 99% of the time it's going to be you're waking up because your stress bucket is too full. Because when you're having that REM sleep, when your brain is processing your stress bucket, if your stress bucket levels are too high, your brain is going to wake you up because it's got too much to do in the time it needs to do it. Because you're not processing your stress bucket all night. It's only about, it varies from person to person, but it's around 20% of your sleep cycle. So, you know, there's a lot to get to work on in that small cycle. If there's too much in your stress bucket, it's going to wake you up and you're going to feel groggy or alert and your mind will start racing. And often as well, I'll see clients who say they sleep well, but then when I sort of question them a little bit about it, they're waking up at 5 in the morning, every morning, waking up too early. And that's not the people that are coming from you and telling me, oh, it's because the morning routine. It's because they don't want to be waking up that early. That, again, is a sign that the stress levels are too high. So what they can do about it is download a free sleep hypnotherapy audio. Go to my Instagram bio, the link's in there, or if you're on Facebook, just message me and you can download a free sleep hypnotherapy audio, which when you have...
We get those bits off you. I get all those bits at the end, and then people find you with the free training. So, okay, the next question is why do people press snooze in the morning?
Procrastination. Don't want to face the day. Primitive, like they're in a primitive brain.
And how would they get out of that? So in terms of, it's one of the biggest questions, and I know we've spoken a lot about it in terms, I know you've given like that general side of things, but what I'm trying to do is for guys to understand why they don't get out of bed. Why do they, like a lot of people say in the morning, oh, I'm not a morning person. And like, I know it's just pure fucking laziness. And
it's procrastination. It's the primitive brain.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what I really want the guys to understand is the science behind why they're not doing it. Does that make sense?
Yep. So listen to the sleep audio, because when you listen to that, your brain is having an extra opportunity to process the stress bucket, because when you have hypnotherapy, it replicates the REM sleep. So it's processing your stress bucket and it helps you to go into a deeper, more nourishing, restorative sleep. So you will wake up feeling much more refreshed and energized and ready to go. But as well as that, is do the 3 Ps. Do more positive actions, thinking, interactions. Do more of what lights you up. Try and enjoy your life more, because then you will want to get up in the morning. You know, you'll be much more likely to be more in your intellectual mind than before.
Just go through those 3 Ps again, real simple for the guys, because I know that when they listen, they go, oh my God, men, this is what men are like. But like, what are those 3 Ps again? So if you just kind of like, what are those 3 Ps, short and sharp for the lads to listen and write down?
Yeah. Positive thinking. Trying to see the positive in situations, or when you notice a negative thought, stop it. Choose that the next thought is going to be positive, whether it's a positive memory or something you're looking forward to, or gratitude. The next one is positive actions. Do more of what lights you up. When you're doing something you enjoy, you're getting the feel-good hormones your brain needs. Self-care is not optional. We need it if we're going to stay in the intellectual mind. And the other one is positive interactions.
Okay, lovely. Thanks for that. Cool. So one of the last things that I want to ask you, and this is a game changer for me. I do this every day now, and you used to fucking hammer me about it. What's good? what's good, what's good, what's good, what's good. Tell me the theory behind the what's good exercise and what people can do and why they should do it to improve this.
Yeah. So everything that you've ever experienced ever is stored in your subconscious mind. And up until the age of about 7, you're literally, it's programming your makeup, your beliefs, everything. You don't have the mental capacity to work out what's correct and what's a bad example, what's a good role model. So our adult belief systems can often be very, very not aligned with the person that we want to be. And that shapes your outlook and your actions on the world. And so add to that the fact that we're designed and primed to be negative makes for a very, very likely situation that you're living your life in your primitive mind. And the thing about keeping a positivity journal and doing it just before you go to bed is about retraining your brain to create a new habit of looking for the good things in your life. And it's about bringing down the expectation of what brings you joy. Don't live for a holiday that's 3 months away. Don't live for the weekend. Live for something that you are looking forward to tonight, even if it's just dinner with your family. Yeah, bring down the standard of what brings you joy. And the more you notice, the more you will notice.
We call that the 1% win.
Yeah, exactly.
The 1% win. That is the science behind the 1% win, right? 100%. I love that. And I did a post the other day, and I said to Jemima, what was the best part of your day today? What was the best thing? She went, I started booking in clients. It was brilliant. And then I put it up on social media, and I went, it doesn't matter what's happened today. Let's finish there on a positive. Tell me what your biggest win. I don't know if you saw that. And man, there was so many comments. Everybody got involved because everybody liked that little bit of positivity before they went to bed. Bang. And so I look at my top 10 things as I go along. I've got my phone on my notes, and I will every time something's good, got that from you, and I just bang, stick it in, even if it's just, do you remember the
pigeon,
watching the pigeon making his
I knew that was coming.
I was just sitting there having my lunch, and normally my world is boom, 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 100 miles an hour, and I just sat there and I was watch this pigeon for 15 minutes and eat my lunch, making this nest, getting the weeds out, and it was just incredible. It was incredible to watch, and it just made me feel very human. It just brought me out of that chaotic world, that drive, hungry life. And the biggest thing that I've got from working with you is to appreciate much more the bigger things in life, and the bigger things are family, legacy, happiness.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm very, very ambitious, but I've accepted that I'm not in a chapter of my life where I can be as ambitious as I want to be. That's not the lifestyle I want, right? With the lifestyle that I change, I don't want that. I've got my kids I want to put through college. I've got my little ones who've just been born. The ambition and drive and hunger comes later on. So that's the change of mindset that you done that for me. So,
but it wasn't just conscious work though, James. The massive change comes from the hypnotherapy 100%. Because it's a quick thing. Because when you have hypnosis, your brain is your subconscious brain, where all your thoughts and your feelings come from, are open to positive suggestions. So we can get rid of the stuff that was niggling away at you on a subconscious level. Get rid of that, replace it with much more helpful things for you, so that you're able to feel calmer, more focused.
And it's worked, and I still listen to that now. Every single night I listen to it, and I think you said that you've got some of that for people to gather. All right, so we've got some spontaneous questions that I'm going to ask you to finish up with. All right. What's your mission?
To just help people. This makes such a difference, and so make a difference. I used to be a teacher and make a small difference to a lot of people, 5 different classes all day every day. I made a small difference to a lot of people. Now I think I make a big difference to fewer people.
I love it. If you had an elite operator in your mind up there, what would you call it?
Jenna, it's my intellectual mind.
God, it's too easy. You can't use you've got to come up with it. I'll let you have a think while we're going through the other questions. These are on the spot questions. What's the worst piece of advice you've ever been given?
I need to think about that one too.
Come on the spot, Jenna. Intellectual mind.
See, and now you're putting me in my primitive brain. I can't think. I've got brain fog. Pass.
No, you can't pass. Think of a piece of bad advice that you've been given.
Oh, I don't know. Honestly, I can't think.
Okay.
Maybe it's because I don't know, because I'm a hypnotherapist. I'm doing like my brain is.
You're just too positive.
Listen, my brain is listening to everything that I'm saying to my clients all day, every day. So I let go of the shit that doesn't serve me. I can't remember the bad advice.
And any bad advice you got given, you would just turn it into a positive.
Exactly.
So I mean, what's the best advice you've ever been given?
Go for what you want in life.
Go for what you want in life. Love it. Brilliant. So where can everybody find you, Jenna?
On Instagram at Believe and Achieve with Jenna. Facebook, Jenna Holloway, or search for the Believe and Achieve Academy, or LinkedIn. Yeah.
What's your email? Have you got a business email?
Yep. info@believe-achieve.co.uk.
Right. And did you say that you can get a free audio on your Instagram bio?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
it's
is that the one that I listened to, the sleep one?
You got a special client one.
Oh, stop. Love it.
But yeah, it is good. It's really good. So yeah, hop over to my Instagram, or if you're only on Facebook, feel free to send me a message and I can send it out to.
Amazing.
You.
I love it. And I believe that some of my lads have signed up with you. And
yeah.
We're loving it. So I think you really made an impact in our mastermind, like especially with all the guys that I personally coach. You know, they really got it and they're getting benefit from it. You know, I got benefit from it. Jen is definitely worth a follow. Like this for me is the science underneath everything I talk about. So like I talk about in a common sense man type of way. You talk about it in, this is the science, what's going on with your brain.
Yeah, it really does go hand in hand.
Yeah, it's really, really good. So I think, Jenna, the next step for you, and always like to challenge everyone, is writing a book on this. And I think that's your next move. And I think there will be a lot of people that, if it can be explained super simply, you know, that word, super simply, I really believe that people will have such a vast understanding of this. I think you have to understand this side of it. It's like science and nutrition, right? You've got to understand what's happening with the calories and the way your body's moving, rather than just going, oh, let's just go Herbalife for 6 months and lose it. You've got to learn this. You've got to understand.
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? Understand.
And I think when you understand, you have more of an emotional connection. You know, like I know that when I'm negatively talking to myself, I know how to get out of it with the work that I did with you, the work I do with myself, and that's why it's so important to work on ourselves. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And hopefully maybe on one of our seminars and chats, you'll come along and do something like this in the future next year.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think it will be really, really good. Lads, please let me know what you think of this. If you're listening, please drop a review. Let me know the review of what you think of Jenna's talk. If you can't get a hold of Jenna for whatever reason, email me at boardmanjames.com and I'll put you in the right direction. All right, we're done.